Pidgeot and Fearow are known as the Route 1 Pokemon of Kanto, but what if we were to take them out of Kanto and put them in Alola? How fast could they beat Pokemon Moon in a solo run? Let's find out. Even though these Pokemon look very similar, they could not be any more different. Let's talk about Pidgeot first, and then we'll move on to Fearow. For Pidgeot, for our base stats, we have 83 HP, 80 attack, 75 defense, 70 special attack and special defense, and 101 speed. And just like with most starters, we are actually in the medium-slow level up group, so for a game where it's hard to get XP, we should level up fairly decently. Our moveset though, however, leaves much to be desired. We do get Hurricane as a remember move, but we won't have access to those until Mount Lanakia, which is the Pokemon League essentially. Then afterwards we get Tackle, Sand Attack, Gust, and Quick Attack as our level 1 moves. Generation 7 was also the generation that lowered Tackle's power from 50 in Generation 5 and 6 to 40, so it's basically identical to Quick Attack. Well, I guess Tackle has an extra 5 PP, but still. Then at level 17 we get our next move, Whirlwind. Yeah, that's pretty gross. Then we get Twister, Feather Dance, Agility, Wing Attack at level 38, Roost, Tailwind, Mirror Move, Air Slash, and Hurricane. Something that's actually very interesting is that Mega Pidgeot, which we will not be using in this run today, because 1, I banned Mega Evolutions, and 2, it's in the post game at the Battle Tree. Mega Pidgeot is a special attacker, but it really doesn't get many special moves, especially in the TM department. Thankfully, we do get Work Up as a setup move. Fearow will get it as well. Then we also get Hidden Power, Hyper Beam, Roost, Return, Aerial Ace, Facade, Rest, Attract, Thief, Round, Steel Wing, Giga Impact, Fly, and U-Turn. So yeah, not really too many options for moves, but I'm pretty confident we'll have what we need to finish the run in a pretty decent time. At least I hope so. Fearow, on the other hand, honestly in my opinion has the better stat spread. We have 65 HP, 90 attack, 65 defense, 61 special attack and special defense, and 100 speed. And unlike Pidgeot, Fearow is in the medium fast level up group, not the medium slow group. So levels for Fearow are going to be a bit more difficult. At level 1, Fearow will start off with Peck, Growl, Leer, and Pursuit. We can get Drill Run and Pluck with the move relearner if we want to. And then at level 11 we'll get access to Fury Attack, which if you guys remember the Beedrill vs Butterfree solo run video I did last week, we could use the Normalium Z to make Fury Attack a 100 power move. Then we can get Aerial Ace at level 15, which is way better than Pidgeot getting Wing Attack at level 38. And then we get Mirror Move, Assurance, Agility, Focus Energy, Roost, Drill Peck, and Drill Run at level 45. Our TM moveset is actually the exact same as Pidgeot, but with 2 extra moves. Fearow, not Pidgeot, gets access to 2 moves, Echoed Voice and False Swipe. Having False Swipe is going to make SOS training later in the game a lot more reliable. And funnily enough, with this thing having Echoed Voice, Pidgeot is the one that kind of deserves it, you know, since its Mega Evolution is a special attacker. If we also take a look at a side-by-side comparison, comparing Pidgeot and Fearow's stats, Fearow has 10 extra attack compared to Pidgeot, but Pidgeot has more HP, defense, special attack, special defense, and 1 extra speed stat. Funnily enough, Pidgeot actually got buffed. It used to have 91 speed. So at least Pidgeot will have some bulk going for it, while Fearow will do more offensive damage, but it is going to be a lot more frail. But I wonder how this will work out in the first island. I think both of them are going to have a pretty easy time since the Island Kahuna here Hala uses fighting types. However though, there really isn't any time to talk about the Hala fight, not even the Raticate fight. Teacher Emily inside the trainer school with the Magnemite and the Meowth is actually super difficult for Pidgeot. Essentially, the plan here is to use a couple of sand attacks and just try to 4-shot it with quick attack. However, this fight is very difficult at this point. I mean, we do get workup, but here's the problem. We wouldn't really have time for that, and we would need a lot of workups to turn quick attack from a 4-shot to a 3-shot, and at that point you're just giving it a lot more opportunities to use Thunder Shock. So the plan is just to reset here until I get the sand attack look I need, which unfortunately for Pidgeot takes a grand total of 9 resets and 2 blackouts. There were 2 different fights where I did beat the Magnemite but lost to the Meowth, so I blacked out to keep the experience. So yeah, this is worse than Butterfree's struggle against Lima in the last video. At least for the Alolan Raticate trial, after one workup, Quick Attack at level 15 will be a 2-shot. I could use Gust to hit both targets in this battle, but the damage will get spread by about 75% on each target, so Raticate would not have been a 2-shot. So despite the defense boost, Quick Attack was the better option. Also on Route 3, we could get one of the better held items for Pidgeot, and Fearow as well, the Sharp Beak. This will boost the power of flying type moves by 20. And I will use this in combination with Gust for Hala. However, unfortunately, when I fight Hala, I actually forgot to equip it and I held the Silk Scarf the whole time while spamming Gust. Oh well, it's not like it really mattered too much, Hala was still pretty easy. With Pidgeot, I defeat his Crabrawler in one hit thanks to a Quick Attack with a time of 26 minutes and 6 seconds. Let's take a quick look at how Teacher Emily goes. Thankfully, because of Fearow's higher attack stat in combination with Pursuit, which does neutral damage to Magnemite, it'll actually be a 3-shot, but sadly, our defense is still worse than Pidgeot, so Thundershock will do slightly more to us, but thankfully, this fight does not take nearly as many faults as Pidgeot. It only took 2 blackouts for me to beat her, although before I got the winning attempt, I did train in the grass to go from level 9 to level 10 for the damage rounding. I also do get 2 resets by this berry tree on Route 2 because I need a Chesto Berry for later in the game, and I don't want to have another Beedrill incident where I talk to all the trees and don't get a single Chesto Berry. So yeah, that's the reason I got the resets. For the Raticate with Fearow, I'm using the Silk Scarf with Echoed Voice. This is going to stack up very quickly, especially since Silk Scarf boosts the power of normal type moves by 20%. You know, this is a move I really wish Pidgeot had, but no. Give Echoed Voice to the physical attacker of the two. Hala pretty much goes exactly how you think it does. I go into the fight with the Normalium Z instead of the Silk Scarf. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to use Z Workup to get +2 attack, and then sweep his whole team with Peck. I didn't do this with Pidgeot because my flying type move was special. But as soon as I defeat his Crabrawler, Fearow can go ahead and get a time of 24 minutes and 23 seconds. So yeah, looking at the two, Fearow is definitely ahead by about 2 minutes, but usually it's the middle island, the Akala Island, that usually decides the lead at this point. So why don't we go ahead and stick with Fearow for a while, and while we're at the next island on our way to the water trial, we can go over its ability, hidden power typing, and nature. I may as well do it for Pidgeot too, but I'm not going to switch to it because they're actually very similar. With Fearow, we're running the ability Keen Eye, which prevents our accuracy from going down. This is honestly just one of the better abilities that this thing has. Our other ability is Sniper, which just increases the power of critical hits. However, since crits are 1 in 24 chance, it's really not that useful, so I'd rather just block accuracy drops. Pidgeot, though, went with the ability Tangled Feet. This is a pretty interesting ability. Basically, whenever Pidgeot gets confused, the accuracy of all the opponent's moves gets cut in half. So if I ever get confused by a Golbat or something, it'll actually have a 50% chance of missing its moves until I recover. Kind of a niche ability. I mean, Pidgeot does get Keen Eye as well, but I decided because of how many fights can confuse you, I thought Tangled Feet would have been better. And with both Pidgeot and Fearow, we're going with Hidden Power Ground to deal with Magnemites and Magnezones. And both of our natures are lonely. This gives us extra attack and less physical defense. The reason we can get away with less physical defense is because against Pokemon that use rock-type moves like Stone Edge, we're going to die to Stone Edge no matter what, whether it's a neutral nature to defense or minus defense. So we may as well just lower that stat. Although Fearow could make sense lowering special attack, I feel like since we're relying on Echoed Voice for some fights, that won't be a good idea, because that could theoretically give us a range where we need 1 extra hit. Pidgeot, obviously, I don't want to lower special attack because it has more special moves than physical moves. Also, before I head to Akala Island, both Pidgeot and Fearow are going to find a Munchlax for leftovers. Sadly, their bulk just isn't that great, and with how bad their offensive stats are compared to most other Pokemon, I am going to need leftovers not only for some hard fights near the end of the game, but I'm also going to need it to do SOS training. Thankfully, with Fearow, it only took about 3 minutes to find a Munchlax, and now that we are on Akala Island, we gotta go take on the water trial, the fire trial, the grass trial, and the Olivia fight. I am not looking forward to that Olivia fight. The Salazzle isn't exactly going to be easy either, but I think Wishy-Washy should be okay. Echoed Voice with Silk Scarf is a general pretty good answer for it. Before heading to the water trial though, I will actually fight this guy's Tauros and get myself a scope lens. This increases my critical hit modifier by 1. It can go all the way up to +3, but if I wait until I get Focus Energy gives me +2 to my critical hit stage modifier, so having Focus Energy and Scope Lens will actually make all of my moves auto crit. This is a very helpful mechanic for all the totem fights that boost their bulk, and unfortunately we don't get Focus Energy until level 32, so we're going to have to wait a little bit for that. And now, let's go take on Wishy-Washy with Fearow. Against the Wishy-Washy, it has a defense boost, which is normally why Echoed Voice is a good strat here. However, I'm actually not using it. What I am going to do is I'm going to use Z Workup to get +2 attack and then +1 special attack, and then the Wishy-Washy just goes for Soak like an idiot. Also at this point, I have Aerial Ace on my moveset. That's going to allow it to 4-shot Wishy-Washy, well, when the Citrus Berry goes away. But looking back at this probably wasn't the right play. What I should have done was Silk Scarf Echoed Voice, and because of this misplay, I do end up getting a reset on Wishy-Washy, which is pretty embarrassing. On the second attempt against Wishy-Washy, I do change my strat properly to Echoed Voice. However, there is a huge problem. Because of our non-existent bulk, we're not really able to survive for long enough for Echoed Voice to get up to the power it needs to get in order to defeat both it and the other Wishy-Washy. And because of that, I'm actually torn between Silk Scarf and Oranberry. I actually get plenty of resets here because of the lack of bulk. It actually takes me until 7 resets into the run for me to actually get a fight where the Wishy-Washy just becomes totally incompetent and I'm able to knock it out using Echoed Voice. So yeah, this really isn't a good sign if a Pokemon struggles against Wishy-Washy. Hopefully Salazzle and Lurantis will be easier than this. Inside of the Thrifty Megamart, I go ahead and get myself the TM for Rest from this quote-unquote Hypno. Then I can just buy some extra repels with my 50% off discount code. And before I fight the Salazzle, I'm going to need a pretty decent level for Olivia. So what I'm actually going to do is Blackout training on the Marowak. And if I go into the Marowak training with Assurance on my moveset as well as Aerial Ace while holding the leftovers, I'll have plenty of power points to knock out as many Marowaks as I feel like I need to. I do the Marowak training for several minutes, and I go from level 23 to almost level 28. I'm also holding the Sharpbeak as well because I wanted the Marowaks to be one-shots as I did the training. And as soon as I get level 28 for the Salazzle, we are ready to take it on. On turn 1 with the Salazzle, I go for Aerial Ace doing about 2/3 and I get hit with Flame Burst. The ally Salandit does show up, but thankfully the Salazzle did not use Toxic, so the Salandit really couldn't do too much to me, and Aerial Ace just makes it completely easy. It would have been even easier with Drill Run, but sadly I don't get that move until level 45. Alrighty, next trial is the Lurantis trial. This fight is obviously going to be very easy. I am not worried about this at all. However though, I end up getting a Blackout on this Scientist on Route 8 with an Archon and a Shield on. Unfortunately on the Archon, I was all out of Aerial Aces from the Marowak training, and my only other attack was Hidden Power Ground, so I couldn't do any damage to it, so I had to let it black me out. That was embarrassing. However though, the Lurantis should be more embarrassed. I just completely destroy it and the cast form that gets spawned as well. If you guys are wondering what level Fearow needs for Olivia, I need level 30. And we're actually going to go into the fight with a very interesting moveset. Growl, Hidden Power, Workup, and Rest. With the Normalium Z. You may have noticed I've been holding on to Growl the entire game. You're thinking, hey Speed, why aren't you deleting Growl? Well, here's an interesting thing. Growl has a very unique combination with the Normalium Z that's going to help us win the Olivia fight. Why don't we go ahead and see what I'm talking about. and as soon as Olivia is defeated, we'll switch on over to Pidgeot. I think this will be a quick solo run versus video because unlike Butterfree versus Beedrill, Fearow and Pidgeot honestly play kinda similarly. So yeah, why don't we go ahead and take on Olivia. Olivia leads off with Nose Pass. What I'm going to do is use the Normalium Z on Growl. This will not only lower the Nose Pass's attack, but also give me +1 in my defense, and then that way I can use 2 more Growls, and effectively having -3 attack and +1 defense is going to make it do almost no damage. Then I can set up the 5 workups, rest if I need to, and then just sweep her whole team with Hidden Power Ground. And this strategy actually lets me first try Olivia and get a split of 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 43 seconds. So yeah, honestly, that was a decently fast Olivia, at least for a flying type. Before we continue on to the next island, we obviously gotta let Pidgeot catch up. The Munchlax doesn't go too bad for Pidgeot, it only takes me about 2 minutes to find it. Before I continue on to Wishy-Washy though, there is one special normal type move I learned. It is the TM for round. It is so annoying to get this. I have to go back to the shopping mall, talk to this janitor, pick up each of the sparkling bits of garbage, then you have to give it to the Grimer one at a time, and then after all the garbage is picked up, you get the TM for round. This is just a 60 power special normal type move. This is a very, very bad move for a lot of Pokemon. But sadly, since we don't get Echoed Voice, this is going to have to be our next best thing, because guess what? Our only normal type moves by level up are Tackle and Quick Attack. If we want to use a decent normal type move, we would have to normally wait until Facade in Mali City on the 3rd island. So yeah, we need to have a better move in the meantime. And just unfortunately, round just has to be it. Against the Totem Wishy-Washy, I am holding the Silk Scarf. I'm going to go ahead and use 1 workup just to get +1 to my special attack, and then I can just start spamming round. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a 2-shot for Wishy-Washy because of the Citrus Berry. At the last minute though, it actually went for Soak, so as soon as the Wishy-Washy is in red health, I go ahead and use Quick Attack. Then on the other Wishy-Washy, I can just knock it out with round. So unlike Fearow, Pidgeot actually first tried Wishy-Washy because it actually had the bulk to survive. And like Fearow, I do some Marowak trading for Salazzle. I only do it until I get level 27 for the Salazzle. On turn 1, it does go for Toxic, but that's fine though. Hidden Power Ground at this point can easily 2-shot. And despite getting poisoned and Venoshock doing massive damage, it's not going to be enough, and I first try the Fire Trial. I don't get a blackout to the Scientist this time, but I do get a blackout on Lurantis. The main strat is to use 1 Feather Dance on the Lurantis so its physical moves don't do too much damage, and then you can just set up some workups, and the Trumbeak ally that can be summoned does have Supersonic, so if I get confused, all of their moves will essentially have a 50% chance of missing until the confusion wears off. But that's fine though, I can just get the setup that I need, and just sweep the rest of the Pokemon here with Gust. Olivia, I'm going into the fight with Hidden Power Ground, Workup, Feather Dance, and Rest. This is a pretty similar strat to Fearow, just using Feather Dance instead of Z Growl. The main plan here is just to use some Feather Dances on the Nose Pass, set up some Workups, and just sweep with Hidden Power Ground. I have Rest just in case I need to use it. Sadly though, because of some bad luck with Paralysis, I do end up getting a few resets to Olivia even with Rest, and when I finally defeat her, I get myself a split of 1 hour, 10 minutes, and 41 seconds. Now, Fearow's lead has actually expanded. Despite the problems I had at Wishy-Washy, Pidgeot essentially just exchanged them for resets at Olivia. Pidgeot is now running almost 7 minutes behind Fearow. I do hope that Fearow can keep this lead up, but honestly, who knows? There is still a chance Pidgeot can easily catch up, because normally in the later parts of the game, Pokemon that have bulk are really prioritized because of how hard the later fights are. But we'll see when we get there. So for Ula Ula Island, we're going to go ahead and stick to Pidgeot now for a bit. This is generally the island that decides who wins and who loses, because this island has some of the hardest fights in the game, including Totem Mimikyu and Nanu. Sadly, just like with Beedrill last week, With Pidgeot, I tried to get attract early while I still had the Munchlax in my party, and thankfully though, unlike Beedrill, I actually did successfully defeat these golfers and got myself the attract TM. And then we can just skip all the dialogue at the Aether Foundation, and we can go ahead and quickly let How kick our ass here. There is just no way we're defeating an Alolan Raichu at this point. Same thing with Fearow. Inside of the Mali City Pokemon Mart, I'm going to buy a couple of things. I'm going to be getting the Facade TM. I was going to get Roost as well, but I actually forgot to get it, but I will go back and buy it. Facade is now our most powerful normal type move, so I can finally get rid of Round. Oh yeah, I just realized there's also a third TM we buy here, Steel Wing. Steel Wing is going to really come in handy for the Mimikyu fight, because Mimikyu's one of its few weaknesses is Steel. And not only in Mali City we get a very good normal type move, we could also get a very powerful flying type move as well. We could get the Fly TM here from this Tourist, which with both Pokemon we will be getting. Fly is a 90 power move with 95% accuracy, and it's a 2-turn move, so if you hold leftovers you can get some health out of it. I think Air Slash might be better when we get access to it, but for now, having Fly is going to be a lot better. Also, by the garbage area north of Mali City, I'm going to fight these trainers here not only for the experience, but also to just get a Twisted Spoon to sell for money. The reason I never talk about this Twisted Spoon is because in Coney City on the previous island for $2,000 you can just purchase an odd incense that does the same exact thing. On top of Mount Hakanali, we are ready to fight the electric type trial. It's going to be a pretty difficult trial for both of our racers today, but obviously before we fight Vikavolt we need to buy some vitamins for Pidgeot. And today's vitamin of the day is 3 protein, 3 carbose, and 6 calcium. We need these to just get our attack and speed to 100, which is essentially the vitamin maximum threshold for EVs, and just get as much special attack as we physically can. And after we're done with all this, we're not going to fight Vikavolt just yet. What we're actually going to do is go back to the route north of Paniola Town by the nursery and just fight the wild Pokemon here. These wild Pokemon all give attack EVs. And you may be wondering what EVs I need for Pidgeot. I need 132 attack, 76 defense, 100 special attack, and 112 speed. So after we get the attack that we need, we could also fight some Fearows to get the rest of the speed, or just assume we can get the rest of the EVs naturally. I do decide for now though, after I get the attack EVs, just go back to Mount Hakanali and just go fight the electric trial. So why don't we go see how this trial goes? The Vikavolt has an Omni Boost. What I'm going to do here is use 1 workup as Spark does more than half. Then with +1 to my attack, I'm going to use Breakneck Blitz with Facade as the base. I'm hoping this will do enough damage for the one-shot, and unfortunately it does not. I now know this in post, but Kingler Calc is actually incorrect with the stats of this Vikavolt. Vikavolt actually has a plus defense nature. It's the reason in the Blastoise video I kept missing the ranges with Hydro Vortex based on Aqua Tail. Unfortunately at the time I just did not know this. Also, since both Pidgeot and Fearow resist bug type moves, both Guzma fights are going to be incredibly easy using moves like Fly, so it's honestly not worth considering this guy for the rest of the video. I do fight a bunch of the trainers on the route where you get Mudstale because I need level 38 for the Mimikyu, and Mimikyu is going to be a pretty simple fight. We're just going to be using the Steel Wing TM with the Steelium Z. This will give it a one-shot after +1 with workup. Since there's really nothing else to talk about until then, and the trial's coming up really soon, why don't we go ahead and just fight Mimikyu right now? I start the Mimikyu fight at level 39 with Facade, Workup, Steel Wing, Fly, and holding the Steelium Z. What I'm going to do turn 1 is use Steel Wing just to break the disguise as it goes for a failed turn 1 Mimic. Then the Haunter shows up. What I'm going to do from here is use one singular workup. Unfortunately though, Play Rough gets a critical hit on me, allowing the Haunter to put me to sleep and knock me out on the next turn. Thankfully on the second attempt, I get the turn 1 Mimic again. I don't get crit, but I do get put to sleep again. That allows Mimikyu to kill me. Dude, Haunter, quit putting me to sleep, dang it. Third attempt, I actually get the turn 1 Mimic again. I'm being given all the luck here. And thankfully, I am able to successfully use Corkscrew Crash on the Mimikyu and it one-shots. Thankfully, the Haunter does not put me to sleep. I can go ahead and use Fly to knock it out at +1 thanks to Workup. So yeah, it took 3 tries, mainly because of bad luck with Hypnosis, but that's generally how a lot of these Mimikyu fights go. With Mimikyu defeated, Po Town is generally uneventful and the Guzma fight here is very easy. And now that we're ready to fight Nanu, I'm going to talk about our moveset. Our moveset for Nanu is going to be Protect, Workup, Roost, and Fly. I got the Protect TM back in Hiya City on Island 2, Akala Island. I will use this to block turn 1 Fake Out, and essentially just try to sweep his whole team with Fly. But unfortunately, the main problem with this plan is that the Persian has Fur Coat, which doubles its defense. So yeah, it's not going to do too much, but with Workup, we should be fine. I'm going to go into the fight with Leftovers as well while we set up Workup. So now, let's go fight the third Island Kahuna, Nanu. On turn 1, I use Protect to block the Fake Out, and then I go ahead and just alternate between Protect and Workup. This allows Leftovers to slightly heal up more HP. I can also use Fly as well to use Leftovers, or just flat out use Roost. My plan is to set up to +3 and knock out the Sableye with 1 use of Fly. Next up is the Persian. It will not send out Krokorok second against flying types. Then it does outspeed and hit me with Power Gem, but thankfully it doesn't have a Rock EMZ. I can one-shot it with Fly, and then even though I got intimidated lowering my attack to +2, I still get a knockout anyway, and I go ahead and get myself a time of 1 hour, 56 minutes, and 36 seconds. Okay, Fearow's turn. Hopefully Fearow can keep up its 7-minute lead. When I get to Mali City after getting my butt whooped by Hao's Raichu, I buy the exact same TMs, Roost, Facade, and Steel Wing. I also get the TM for Fly as well. Fearow will be able to utilize this slightly better because Fearow is actually a physical attacker, unlike Pidgeot, which is sort of like a balanced attacker. On top of Mount Hakanali, my vitamin of the day is going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to be buying some Carbos. You may be wondering, hey, why aren't you buying protein? And don't worry, I do buy some of that too. I just get 3 Carbos and 5 protein. And just like Pidgeot, Fearow is also going to be doing some SOS training before Vikavolt. I do some Zubat training for just a little bit to get the extra speed. Looking back, this was unnecessary. I most likely would have gained the rest of the speed EVs naturally. Fearow needs 140 attack, 76 defense, 50 special defense, and 128 speed. So I could have easily gotten the rest of my speed naturally. And you may be wondering why I need special defense EVs. This will come in handy for the Elite Four section of the game. So I go ahead and finish up the Zubats, and I fight some Pikipeks. I start the Vikavolt fight at level 35, which was actually the minimum level I needed, by the way. I'm going into the fight with Aerialace, Roost, Facade, and Workup. On turn 1, I'm going to go for Workup as Spark does about 2/3. I have Leftovers though, but it's not going to heal enough based on how much Spark did. So what I'm going to do now is just use Roost, and Spark doesn't do as much because during the turn you use Roost, you actually lose your flying typing. And unfortunately, at +1, I'm still not able to knock out the Vikavolt. This whole error with Kingler Calc showing this thing with not a plus defense nature but a different nature has really been screwing up my ranges. If this thing did not have a plus defense nature, that would have been guaranteed. So both of these runs honestly suffered from misinformation. I do beat this guy on the 3rd attempt though, I just needed luck to go a little bit my way. Against the Mimikyu, I'm doing the exact same thing as Pidgeot. Use Steel Wing to break the disguise on Mimikyu, and then use Corkscrew Crash to defeat the Mimikyu. It's going to be a bit better here just because I have more attack. It still takes 2 tries though. And now we are ready to take on Nanu. Unlike Pidgeot though, we're going with a completely different strat. We're going with Fly, Roost, Rain Dance, and Workup with the Water EMZ. because unlike Pidgeot, Fearow is lacking bulk, so I kinda need to get the outspeed on Pidgeot, and using Z Rain Dance not only puts rain on the battlefield, which is pointless for me, but the main use is to actually get +1 to my speed. I use a singular workup on the Sableye though first before I do that. I need to make sure I leave the Sableye at decent health, which is why I'm constantly spamming Roost. This fight is still pretty difficult, but just like with all the other fights on this island, it takes a few tries, and by the time I'm finally able to defeat Nanu with this strategy, Fearow gets a time of 1 hour, 52 minutes, and 21 seconds. Okay, Fearow is still in the lead, but it definitely narrowed by quite a bit. Pidgeot is only behind by about 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Honestly, the 4th island, anything can really happen. I mean, the next Kahuna fight is going to be Hapu, the ground type specialist, and both these Pokemon are immune to ground, but she can still be pretty difficult in other ways. And then we gotta take care of the final 8 trainers as well. However, I consider the final 8 trainers to be a separate split from the Pawnee Island split, so we're gonna go ahead and stick with Fearow and see how Fearow does against Hapu, as well as the vast Pawnee Canyon and the final Dragon type trial. First of all, before I head to the Aether Foundation to clear out all those trainers, I'm actually going to head back to Mali City, enter the restaurant, and get myself the TM for return. Sadly, this is the last generation you ever see this move. Also, throughout the Aether Foundation section, I do end up getting to level 45 and learning my final move, Drill Run. This will be a very great move to deal with the Magnetons here as well as the Mucks. I do have Hidden Power Ground as well. The Hidden Power Ground was just meant to last until I got access to Drill Run. I also first try the Guzma fight here, as well as the Lusamine fight. You're not required to win the Lusamine fight, but if you are able to beat her, she gives you a lot of experience points. And now, we are at Pawnee Island. Normally, Pawnee Island is home to a lot of very good late game TMs you could get, but Fearow doesn't need any of them. Neither does Pidgeot, really. And the thing is also, I need to be level 53 for Hapu at a minimum, so I'm going to fight most of the trainers here, get a blackout reset or 2 in the process, and then eventually, by the time I reach Hapu, after beating pretty much all the trainers plus some wild Pokemon, I'm able to get level 53, and I'm going to fight her with the following moveset: Drill Run, Workup, Roost, and Return, with the Normalium Z. So let's go ahead and defeat the final Kahuna Hapu. On the first turn with Dugtrio, I go ahead and use 1 workup as I get hit with an Iron Head, and sadly, I do get a reset here. What I essentially need to happen is I want the Dugtrio to occasionally use Sucker Punch, but I ended up realizing it's just not going to go for Sucker Punch against me, it's just going to keep going for Iron Head. So I need to change up my strategy a little bit. On the 3rd attempt against Hapu, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Drill Run on the Dugtrio right away to get rid of it. Do not set up on it. Next up is the Gastrodon. I'm going to go ahead and set my workups here. And also, the #1 reason for Keen Eye for this run is to actually prevent accuracy drops from Muddy Water, which this Gastrodon has. I'm supposed to set up on it, but my notes didn't accurately reflect that by mistake. And as soon as I get the workups I need, I can 2-shot the Gastrodon, 1-shot the Flygon, and then last up is the Mudstale. Obviously, Return is not going to KO it, but Breakneck Blitz will. And with that down, we defeat Hapu. But I'm not going to track any splits yet, because after Hapu is the entirety of the vast Pawnee Canyon, as well as the Dragon type trial. The Dragon type trial usually isn't hard for most people, but there are some very difficult trainers inside the Pawnee Canyon. For example, there's the first trainer, Veteran Harry, with a Torkoal with Drought, and an Arcanine with Intimidate and Extreme Speed. Normally a lot of Pokemon need to plan for this guy, and I honestly should have. Harry actually gives me 4 resets due to unlucky ranges, me setting up too much, and even getting burned at the last minute. But surprisingly, it didn't take as many attempts as I thought it would, but Harry is still pretty scary. I would argue the top 2 trainers in this whole area is Veteran Harry at number 2, and number 1 would be Veteran Eric. He is the very last trainer. He's the only one here with 4 Pokemon. Thankfully, other than those 4 resets at Harry, no other trainer here gives me any problems. And before Lusamine 2, I have to get to level 59, so after I use my 12 rare candies, I can use them to get to level 71. because I need 73 for Kukui. By the time we get to the Komodo though, we're only level 57, barely at level 58. We're really on that threshold. My plan here though is just to use Work Up turn 1 while the Komodo goes for Protect, and then I can go ahead and use Fly. Thankfully the Komodo isn't really smart to use Protect while I'm flying, so I can go ahead and knock it out, get to level 58, and then I can knock out the Hakamoa as well. Unfortunately though, I am still a level short, but theoretically if I want to, I could just fight Lusamine anyway and just use the candies later. I still don't think that's the best idea. Our bulk is still pretty bad. In the end though, I did decide to use all my candies to get to level 68, but unfortunately I'm not level 71. So there is a chance I may have to do blackout grinding at the How fight, or maybe blackout training in the league. But either way, Fearow is going to save the game in front of Lusamine and prepare to fight the final 8 trainers with a real time of 2 hours, 32 minutes, and 8 seconds. So let's switch on over to Pidgeot now, and then both Pokemon can take on the final 8 trainers. Pidgeot is going to get Return as well before taking on the Aether Foundation. I don't get any resets or blackouts to anybody here, including the Guzma fight and the first Lusamine battle. And as soon as we get to Pawnee Island, just like Fearow, I will need level 53 as well, and my moveset is going to be almost identical. It's going to be Fly, Work Up, Roost, and Return with the Normalium Z. Interestingly enough, in order to get to level 53, I fought every trainer in the Pawnee Wilds except for one. This dancer right here with 4 Oricorios, each holding a Focus Sash. These Pokemon give very good XP yields, and you could purposefully black out on the 4th one and just keep a ton of experience. It's actually more consistent as well that they have Focus Sashes. However, I just do this until I get to about level 52.5, then the Team Skullgrunts can get me to level 53, and we can go ahead and take on Hapu. On the Doug Trio, on turn 1, I'm going to go ahead and use Work Up. Even though we can't get hit with Earthquake, it's still going to hit us with Iron Head, and the Sandstorm is doing quite a lot of damage. But thankfully, we do have Roost. The one disadvantage of Roost though is we could get hit with Mud Bomb or Earth Power from her Pokemon. But thankfully, she sends out Gastrodon second, which isn't really that good, and it's pretty easy to set up on. Then as soon as it goes down, I can one-shot the Flygon with Return, and then use Breakneck Blitz on the Mudstale. Inside of the vast Pawnee Canyon, I do get a couple of resets to Harry because of his Torkoal and Arcanine, and I actually get one other blackout. I get a blackout on Veteran Eric at the very end of the canyon. I did say earlier in the video, I view him as one of the top 2 hardest trainers in the canyon. But thankfully, as soon as I defeat him, I'm level 58. I need level 59 because I want to candy up to get 71. I actually played Pidgeot first before Fearow, so I honestly should not have done this. What I should have done was just do blackout training on How or in the league if I need to, because I ended up just training in the wild to get like 3/4 of a level, so the Komodo can get me to level 59 and I can use all the candies. I get to level 71 after using all 12 rare candies that you can get in this game, and I save before Lusamine with a split of 2 hours, 38 minutes, and 25 seconds. This is very unfortunate. Pidgeot has just been never able to catch up to Fearow. It went from being about 4 minutes and 15 seconds behind after splitting at Nanu. Now, it's about over 6 minutes behind. Sadly, Pidgeot just has no hope of catching up. It would take a miracle for this Pokemon to actually catch up during the final 8 trainers against Lusamine, Gladion, How, Hala, Acerola, Olivia, Kahili, and Kukui. But you never know, crazier things have happened. So you know what, we're going to go back and forth between both Pokemon now as we take on the final 8 trainers, starting with Lusamine. Against Lusamine, I have Return, Fly, Roost, and Work Up with Fearow. I'm level 68 because I used my rare candies earlier. I'm going to be holding the leftovers for this fight because I need to set up a decent bit. I can always use Roost to get some of my health back if I need to, but thankfully Clefable's not exactly an offensive Pokemon, so I can go ahead and just knock it out with Return after it doesn't do much with Moonblast. Next up is the Mismagius. It's technically the fastest Pokemon in the game because its speed is doubled, but it's not really that threatening. Then I can one-shot it with Fly, the Melodic with Fly, and then I'm going to have to one-shot the Beware as well. I actually thought it was going to be a 2-shot, but thankfully, because of all the workups I did, Fluffy ended up not being relevant. Alright, Pidgeot's turn. I have the exact same moveset. This fight is basically the exact same as Fearow's, just The only difference is I can set up a bit easier because of my bulk. Back to Fearow, we're at Gladion now. Unfortunately, there's going to be hail here because when you play the game at night to get return, there's a very high chance you're going to see hail here. But anyway, I don't think it really matters too much. The leftovers is going to essentially cancel out the hail. I can go ahead and use one workup on the Crobat. Using one workup will allow me to one-shot everything with either return or fly. Literally the same exact thing with Pidgeot. There's hail here, I have leftovers, the leftovers will cancel out the hail. I just set up a workup and just sweep with return and fly. Alright, now we are at How. I have return and drill run for this fight. I actually used a heart scale on Fearow to get drill run back. Drill run is needed to one-shot the Raichu. Unfortunately, it's not able to exactly one-shot the Flareon, which is pretty unfortunate, but whatever, it's not that big of a deal. Then on the Primarina, I go ahead and use return for the 2-shot. I have no idea why I didn't just set up a workup. Either I forgot, or we actually don't need it. I think more likely than not, I think I just forgot to use it. I did use it on the Komala though. I really played this fight terribly with Fearow, but in the end though, I was still able to beat him. And for some reason on the Komala, even though it's his last Pokemon, I just set up so many times. It was very unnecessary. I go ahead and use one return on the Raichu after a workup. Next up is the Flareon. Hopefully return one-shots, and it does. Alright, see what happens when you actually remember to use a workup? I can one-shot the Primarina as well, but the Komala likes to survive everything. But thankfully, it does not survive return today at +1. So yeah, you know what? We're definitely ready to take on the final 5 trainers now. Both these fights have just been going really identically. That's kind of why I said this is probably going to be one of the quicker versus races just because of how similar these two are. But who knows, maybe things will diverge when we get to the final 5 trainers in the league. So, let's do this shit. We are starting off with Hala, the Fighting type Elite 4 member. We're going to start with Pidgeot first. I have Air Slash on my moveset, which I used a heart scale to get. The reason I need Air Slash for this fight is because Fly will not do enough to the Beware because of its ability Fluffy. Unfortunately though, I ended up failing a range on the Crabominable, and Ice Hammer just completely destroys Pidgeot. What I do on the second attempt is instead of doing one workup, I decide to do 2 workups. This will guarantee it instead of it being a range. And once the Crabominable goes down, I can use Fly on the Primeape, and then next up is the Beware. I will switch on over to Aerial Ace. Last up is the Poliwrath. I could use either or. I just go for Air Slash. Fearow is also going to be taking on Hala. I have Return, Roost, Workup, and Drill Run. I don't even have an offensive flying move here. I'm not sure how good of an idea that was. I just set up with one workup and just start sweeping with return, but unfortunately, just like Pidgeot, that Crabominable does survive. But here's another thing, I am not at a good enough level because I had to use my rare candies earlier. So what I'm having to do is actually blackout train on Hala in the Pokemon League so I can actually make sure I get level 73 for Kukui, because if I don't get level 73, it's going to be very unlikely we beat him. At 17 blackouts and 18 resets into the run, I do finally beat Hala for real, but I have no idea if this is the end of the blackout training or not. But for right now, let's go back to Pidgeot and both of them can take on Acerola. I changed up my held item for Acerola. I'm currently holding the Sharp Beak here. My plan is just to set up a couple of workups, and then once I'm done with the workups, I will just start spamming Fly. Looking back, Air Slash and Fly are actually the same accuracy, so honestly I'm not sure if I should go Air Slash or Return. I think it just depends on the species, but having Air Slash would definitely be preferable for the Palossand because of its high defense. But in the end though, you can't really out-defend a million uses of workup. The only differences I have with Acerola is that against Acerola with Fearow, I have leftovers instead of a Sharp Beak. Honestly, I'm not even sure why I went with the Sharp Beak with Pidgeot because of all that setup. I should have gone for either leftovers or a Persimberry. That Sableye likes to use Confuse Ray, and even though the chance to hit yourself is 30% in this game, It could still happen. I've had it happen before. Sadly though, this Acerola fight does end up taking longer than Pidgeot's, simply because I have to do my workups on Palossand, because Palosand's only attack that can hit a Fearow is freaking Giga Drain, which is honestly pretty funny. But now, with Acerola defeated, both Pokemon are actually going to fight different league members. For Pidgeot, the third Elite Four member is Kahili. Kahili leads off with her Skarmory. I go ahead and use one workup. It hits me with Steel Wing, doing very little damage. Thankfully, neither of the Steel Wings gave it a defense boost, but even if it did, I'm using Air Slash on it anyway for the 2-shot thanks to Sturdy. Next up is the Mandibuzz. This Mandibuzz loves surviving hits, and thing is, it does survive. In order for me to set up enough to defeat it, I would have needed an extra 2 workups, and unfortunately, I do hit myself in confusion thanks to Mandibuzz. But thankfully I do break out of it pretty quickly. I one-shot the 2 Cannon and the Oricorio. Last up is the Crobat. This Crobat does outspeed. It hits me with Supersonic and I hit myself in confusion. That's annoying. With all those workups, it's doing a lot of damage to me. But thankfully I do snap out of it pretty quickly and defeat Kahili on the first try. For Fearow on the other end, our third Elite Four member is going to be Olivia. Olivia leads off with Relicanth. I forgot to heal for this fight like an idiot, but thankfully it just used Yawn turn 1, the Relicanth did, but still, if you don't heal before a fight, things don't exactly go right. But when I lost here, I actually decided to black out, because even though I'm fighting Olivia 3rd and I could easily theoretically beat her, I was only level 71. But now that I have level 71 at the start of the league, I could actually get level 73 for Kukui during the league, because right now Medium Fast will start leveling up quite nicely. When I do get back to my third Elite Four member though, I do decide to fight Kahili instead. I think I just fought Olivia just to get a quick blackout, but there's really nothing to talk about here. Fearow's strat here is just the exact same as Pidgeot's. Let's get back to Olivia. Against the Relicanth, since I'm actually healed up this time, I can go ahead and just use a workup and then knock it out with Drill Run. Thankfully it didn't use Yawn. Next up is the Lycanroc. I was going to one-shot it with Drill Run. It somehow survived and the Lycanroc used Counter. Yeah, it has that move. In order to make sure I can get extra setup, I do decide to equip a Chesto Berry instead. And you want to know something funny? The Relicanth actually got an Omni Boost with one of its ancient powers, and because of that, it was actually able to survive and hit me with another Yawn, causing another loss. I only end up defeating Olivia at 23 resets into the run. You just need the Relicanth to cooperate so you can set up the workups, and then just sweep with Drill Run on basically everything else. It's very annoying, but sadly, Fearow's bulk just prevents it from having a consistent strat against Olivia. But let's see if Pidgeot has a consistent strat. With Pidgeot, instead of a Chesto Berry or anything like that, I'm actually going to be holding the Leftovers. I'm not sure if the Leftovers was the better item, but it might have been just because we do have better bulk. Unfortunately though, my health gets very dangerously low, but that's fine though. Because of the bulk, I am able to survive, wake up, and use Roost. So it's not too big of a deal. And then on this Relicanth right here, as soon as I wake up, I can one-shot with Hidden Power Ground. I can do the same thing for Lycanroc as well. I'm essentially just using Hidden Power Ground on everything. The Carbink is going to be a 2-shot because that Carbink loves surviving hits as well. It's related to the rival's Kamala. And then next up is the Probopass. I use an Air Slash hoping for a flinch, which I don't get. Follow it by Hidden Power Ground because of the Sturdy. I don't even get a flinch on the Golem either, but thankfully Paralysis does not screw with me, and I can first try Olivia. Now, both fights are going to head towards Professor Kukui, so let's go ahead and finish these runs. Let's go back to Fearow. Fearow's strat here is going to be Return, Drill Run, Attract, and Workup. Sadly, I'm only going to be level 72 here and not level 73, but it's honestly not that big of a deal. I think my ranges will still be pretty similar anyway. However though, both Pokemon need to rely on a Stone Edge miss from the Lycanroc. What you could do here is use Attract turn 1, hopefully prevent the Stone Edge or just let it miss. Then you can go ahead and use Z Workup to get +2 to your attack, which is what I'm doing with Fearow right now, Immobilized by Love. And then now at +2, Drill Run will one-shot the Lycanroc. Next up is the Ninetales. It'll be a one-hit with Return. Now the Magnezone is out. It's probably going to hit me with Thunder Wave, which it does. That's a little unfortunate, but our speed should allow us to outspeed most of the threats. Sadly though, we are not going to outspeed Braviary. It just uses Tailwind anyway, even though we're already paralyzed. Sadly though, on the Incineroar, it does hit me with Inferno Overdrive, and I live at 2 HP, but I can't move because of the paralysis. Okay, I'm going to have to do a worse strat here. I'm going to have to hold the Cherry Berry and just use 2 workups. So I essentially need another Stone Edge miss or a Attract turn. Thankfully, at 27 resets in, I'm able to get past the Lycanroc at full health, make it back to the Incineroar, one-shot it, and then last up is the Snorlax, which is a one-shot with Return. So I can go ahead and knock it out and clock in with Fearow, with a real time of 2 hours, 55 minutes, and 14 seconds, with 27 resets, 18 blackouts at level 73, with a game time after the long-ass credits of 11 hours and 3 minutes. With Pidgeot, my moveset is Return, Workup, Attract, and Roost. Since Fearow had to hold on to Drill Run, I don't have to deal with that problem, so I can go ahead and just hold on to Roost. However though, unfortunately, I am still going to need plenty of workups. And thankfully, because of our bulk, we do have a better chance of not taking as much damage from Stone Edge, and I can hold a Cherry Berry for the Magnezone. And whenever I use Roost, it will get rid of my flying typing, so Stone Edge won't do as much damage. But I still need Attract to cooperate with me, and on my winning attempt, I was actually able to set up all 6 of my workups, and the thing never even hit me once, which is honestly kind of shocking. I did not expect that. And when I get to the Magnezone, I have the Cherry Berry, I can 2-shot it because of Sturdy, then Return can just one-shot everything else, and then Pidgeot can also clock in, with a real time of 2 hours, 51 minutes, and 27 seconds, with 20 resets, 14 blackouts at level 74, with a game time after the long-ass credits of 11 hours and 1 minute. Wow, very close game times. So yeah, this was quite shocking. Pawnee Island made all of the difference. Pidgeot ended up finishing in first place, not just by a little bit, but by almost 4 minutes. What really helped Pidgeot at the end was honestly literally the medium slow growth rate. Fearow was not able to get the level it needed earlier on, so I had to do blackout training in the league, and that blackout training cost me all of that lead. So yeah, literally growth rates made the entire difference here. But if we take a quick look at the tier list, that does not mean they were good Pokemon either. Both Pidgeot and Fearow actually took up the 2 slots in the D tier. It underperformed Pokemon like Silvally and Gyarados, but it overperformed Lunala and Lilligant. That's not really a good sign. Lunala was very bad in this game, and if you want to know why, go check out the video I did earlier this year. But yeah, before I did Pidgeot and Fearow, I had no Pokemon in the D tier, and now I do. And you gotta remember, Silvally had no access to Z moves, so I'm confident Silvally could get a better ranking, but with these 2 Pokemon, they are very identical. The race could really go either way, but I think in the end, the growth rate definitely helped in the end. It didn't help earlier on though, just because the fights were a bit easier for Fearow to deal with, but when it came to getting the right level, Pidgeot was able to excel. But anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more, and be sure to follow me on my socials or support the channel through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to the patch files for all the Mega Evolution Pokemon we do on stream and Pokemon Crystal, as well as access to members-only content, such as Pidgeot and Fearow's unedited raw footage of these solo runs. So if you wanted to watch all of the stuff I didn't cover, as well as hear some insight from people in my Discord, become a member today. Next week, we're going to do another interesting versus race. We're going to be doing the Raticates, Cantonian Raticate versus Alolan Raticate. Both of these Pokemon you may think will play similarly, but they're going to be different in a lot of ways. Some good, mostly bad. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.